Welcome back to our international viewers, and thank you for joining us once again. It is now time for our daily English news edition, and as usual, I'm Daniel Cook, your host, 6 days a week at 6 p.m. The World Bank report, Doing Business, raised the concern that Albania's economy is losing its competitiveness, as well as concern about the effects of the reforms that the government has been undertaking in the last 2 years. Out of all of the indicators that were analyzed by the World Bank, construction permits marked the biggest drop. According to their rankings, Albania has dropped by 67 countries. Payment of taxes also showed a somewhat negative result, dropping 12 positions to the rank of 142nd. Albania's position worsened in the energy sector as well. It is now ranked in the 162nd place. The World Bank's Doing Business reports are a comparative reference for every foreign investor who is considering investment opportunities. Last year, Albania saw an improvement of 40 positions and attained the 62nd place overall. In the report this year, Albania has dropped 35 countries and is now ranked in the 97th place. After the publication of the World Bank report, the Minister of Economy, Ahmetaj, made the statement that the ranking was predictable because of two indicators: the issuing of construction permits and the payment of taxes. The minister declared that the results were because of the reforms undertaken by the government and expressed his conviction that the effect of the reforms will be further reflected next year. He said, "Albania is ranked in the 97th place in the World Bank report, which was predictable because of construction permits and the payment of taxes. With the new territorial reform, the National Territory Council has temporarily suspended all construction permits. We have drafted a very good legal package in crucial sectors like tourism, concessions, economic areas, and strategic investments. We will see these reflected in the coming year," said Minister Ahmetaj. The opposition views the World Bank report differently, saying that the report indicates that the government's policies are poor. The Democratic MP Edmond Spaho made the statement that this was a very negative report for Albania and that the main indicators have worsened significantly. The Democratic Party blames Prime Minister Edi Rama for the poor performance of Albania's economy. At a time when the government is holding its final discussions on the preparation of the fiscal package for next year, the experts have called the government to avoid increasing taxes, arguing that this would damage the country's economy. The financial experts are encouraging the government to improve the administration of taxes rather than increasing them. The Albanian government has already started discussions with the International Monetary Fund about the budget for the coming year. The IMF mission arrived today in Tirana and began a series of meetings with the highest financial leaders of the country. The Foreign Minister, Minister Bushati, has reacted for the first time to the situation of the parliament in Kosovo after its controversial agreement with Serbia. Minister Bushati understands the concern of the Kosovo opposition about the agreement to establish Serbian associations, but he encourages dialogue as the correct path to Kosovo's future. Mr. Bushati expressed these thoughts during an open lecture for the students of social sciences, in which he said that Albania's diplomacy is oriented toward the promotion of peace, security, and prosperity in the Balkan region. He stated that the country's relations with Italy are of great strategic importance, since Italy is a promoter of Albania's European ambitions. He added that the relations with Turkey and Greece also have a strategic dimension, since they are EU and NATO members. Speaking briefly about Albania's relationship with Greece, Minister Bushati said that the countries have entered a new phase. According to him, a document is being drafted that will address the past problems between them. Regarding the maritime agreement with Greece, Minister Bushati said that Albania has two alternatives: either a renegotiation for a new agreement or international arbitrage. The former Prime Minister Sali Berisha has analyzed some of Albania's political developments in an exclusive interview for Aura News, which will be aired this evening at 8:20 p.m. In the interview, he focuses primarily on the governance of Rama and Meta and the agreement between the two allies. He supports the belief that the government has fallen. Mr. Berisha also comments on the developments in the Democratic Party, which he led for 17 years, and comments on the current leader. He speaks about the political situation in Kosovo and the signing of the SAA agreement with the EU. Once again, the interview will be aired tonight here on Ora News at 8:20 p.m. Albania is once again at risk of being flooded in the coming weeks. On the Ora News program Eco-Politics, the Minister of Agriculture, Edmond Panariti, said that all the necessary measures are being taken for cleaning the drainage channels and ensuring that the waterworks are able to cope with the floods. He said, "There are possible floods coming in the next weeks. Albania is considered to be one of the countries with the highest risk of floods, and we must be alert. We are taking the necessary measures. €1 million is being invested in the Leja substation." The Minister of Agriculture went on to speak about the need to move families out of the high-risk areas. Thousands of houses have been built near the rivers, he said. There are thousands of houses in the Leja lowlands where it is prohibited by law to build because of the high risk of floods. We should find consensus and the right mechanisms to transfer these families out of this area, declared Minister Panariti. Lastly, the minister said that the government has drafted a comprehensive plan with clear responsibilities for every institution in the event of floods, including the local governments. In continuation of his tour, the Democratic chairman Luzim Basha met with the citizens and traders of Fier today. After listening to their problems, Mr. Basha promised a reduction of taxes and the opening of new jobs. He also promised that energy arrears will be forgiven. He said, "The income tax will be reduced by 6%, which is the biggest reduction ever made. Around 500 million lek that the government currently collects in taxes will be used to open new jobs, which is our main priority. We will also reduce the energy price by reducing the VAT by 15% for businesses and 19% for consumers. We will reduce the oil price, the circulation tax, and we will forgive the energy arrears without conditions," promised the Democratic chairman. Today, the Albanian President Bujar Nishani held meetings with the U.S. Ambassador Donald Lu and the EU Ambassador Romana Vlahutin. The meeting was not announced to the media, but the speculation is that the justice reform was the focus of the meeting, since it has great importance to the internationals. The U.S. and the EU have asked for the decriminalization process as soon as possible and the realization of the judicial reform. The Austrian ambassador to Albania gave a clear message today to the Albanian political class. Mr. Schnoll stressed the need for the parties to set their disagreements aside and to use the language of understanding, because the national interest should be placed above everything else. He said, "The political parties need to put their disagreements aside and to find the language of understanding. There are certain moments in the history of a country in which the national interest is more important than those of the political parties. Austria is your friend, and we want Albania to be in the EU. I am convinced that this will happen when the country utilizes all of its great potential. Integration into Europe will mean obligations for both the EU and Albania. The EU should keep its promises, but Albania must fulfill the criteria that has been set," said the Austrian ambassador. Mr. Schnoll also spoke about the justice reform and the decriminalization process. He went on, "The parties have agreed on the issue of decriminalization, and this is a very important step for the country. The judicial reform has many problems that need to be resolved in order to increase the trust of the citizens. The country must not fail in this reform." Regarding the request of the opposition on drug testing, the ambassador said that this is strictly an internal issue. That's the end of our edition for today. Thank you so much for choosing Ora News as your source for daily updates in English. Have a great night and see you tomorrow at the same time.